Police Minister Bheki Cele says officers are ready to respond to any situation at tomorrow's coronation of AmaZulu King Misuzulu, kaZwelithini. He's also reiterated that government's intelligence services are not aware of any threats to the country. Newzroom Afrika's team is in KwaZulu-Natal ahead of the coronation tomorrow. Ziyanda, Ngcobo and Ayanda Nyathi standing by now to speak to us. And Ziyanda, perhaps let me come to you first, because you've just been speaking, haven't you, to the police minister. What more has he told you?
Well, Bheki Cele, it would seem that terrorist alert issued by the United States has raised the ire of the South African government, so much so that Police Minister Bheki Cele says he is sticking to what President Cyril Ramaphosa has expressed. Of course, you'll know that Ramaphosa has said that it's disappointing that the United States Embassy did not follow the correct protocols, and as far as they're concerned, there is no evidence then to back up this threat that has been issued by the embassy. Of course, there are 4 major events across the country. There's rugby, the Western Cape, there's the Soweto Derby, there's this event, as well as the Johannesburg Pride. So let's listen to what the police minister had to say a short while ago.
It's a responsibility of the police, either received the special intelligence report or not, to protect the events. This weekend we've got almost 4 major events. All are properly protected and properly prepared. This is one of them. The other one are those matches, the Pride March in Sentin. The other one is a rugby match. The other one is that famous derby. All that, we're fixed with it. We're ready for it. Even if there were no threats, they would have still prepared for it. In Western Cape, we are prepared and protecting those sensitive areas according to the threat that has been issued. But speaking to the intelligence responsible people, they argue that up to this point we do not have evidence on the table of the thing that has been said. I know that they've met people, speaking to the deputy minister responsible and the minister responsible yesterday. No evidence has been put on the table. But as the president has spoken around that, so we'll stick with that statement made by the president.
And Ziyanda, just on that briefing by the police minister, various other members of cabinet are already in KwaZulu-Natal. But apart from the government aspect, this is also a hugely significant moment for AmaZulu as a people, is it not?
It definitely is, and it's never, it must not be lost on us that it's the first time that any of us will ever experience then such a significant moment where the president of this republic hands over a certificate of recognition to the monarch of the AmaZulu, the largest ethnic grouping in this country. And certainly when in 1971 King kaZwelithini was coronated, not many people would have attended such a ceremony. It was also during the apartheid era, so there are many firsts that are going to be taking place. So Police Minister Bheki Cele also reflecting as such, and Bheki Cele, very important to note that whilst they're expecting 48,000, the stadium has a capacity of 60,000, so they're leaving room for about 12,000 for extra people. Where I'm standing right now at People's Park, this is the overflow area, and the police, the men and women in blue, will be deployed all over the province, Bheki Cele, protecting hotels, key points such as the various airports, tourist sites where people will be visiting during this weekend. So for the AmaZulu nation, it's very clear that a king is already on the throne. We already had that moment of Ungenes Bayeni, where in August, where the king then entered the proverbial crawl, for lack of a better way to translate it. And really, this is a mere rubber stamping exercise, but it's an important one that will be taking place in the full view of the entire globe.
Ayanda, Ngcobo, let's stand by with you for now. Go to Ayanda Nyathi. Ayanda, you are right where those thousands of people that Ziyanda has just been referring to will converge tomorrow, and also a lot of work being done there this afternoon.
Yeah, without a doubt. In fact, from the time we got here, before the sun was out, we've been able to see all manner of teams being able to converge here in order to play their part in putting together what is undoubtedly going to be a historic moment, outside of the fact that not many people perhaps would have been able to witness this kind of ceremony for the late Queen Zwelithini back in 1971, as Ziyanda put it. This is also the first time that something like this is ever going to be televised. And let me tell you, all angles have been covered outside or around the stadium. But let me step out a shot, get you a sense of just how far we've come when it comes to the state of preparedness. When we arrived, the entire pitch, as it were, was still completely green. And you can see some of the people who've been working there have been able to cover what I would say is about a quarter of that pitch with what looks like very hard platforms in order to protect the pitch itself from all the activities that are going to take place on top of it. Important this because we're told in a matter of days there's actually going to be quite an important match that is going to take place at this iconic stadium, and you want to ensure that the stadium itself is still able to carry on with the core of its business. But even further down the line, you can see there a grouping of what I would describe as a group of cultural performers, so to speak. They've been rehearsing throughout the early kind of afternoon, well, right throughout the morning, I should say, into the early afternoon. In fact, if we had spoken just 5 minutes ago, it would have been difficult to make out what I was saying because their sound just completely fills this 60,000 odd stadium, and it gives you a sense really of the kind of celebratory mood that's going to take over from the stadium in about 24 hours, or perhaps even less than 24 hours from today. Again, delegates from all over the continent set to descend on the stadium. The official event is meant to begin at around 9 o'clock, but give or take, some people will say African time even, we might have to make an allowance for a few hours outside of that. But the eThekwini government really pulling out all the stops. We're told they've been in conversation with some taxi organizations to make sure upwards of 200 taxis are made available just to ferry people here. On top of that, there are 80 buses being organized and scores of trains in order to make sure that those who want to be present here are absolutely allowed and able to do so.
And just yesterday, when we were listening to some of the other briefings, we were hearing about how, and in fact it was Ziyanda who was telling us at the time, how some of the people in the area around Moses Mabhida are also hoping to cash in. I mean, when there are thousands of people coming there, they need to be fed, and some may even want to take something home.
The reality, of course, is that South Africa is dealing with very serious socio-economic problems. And so there's this kind of twofold benefit that I imagine many people would hope they'll be able to benefit from. The one hand is we're looking for the economic benefits that come from attracting as many people to this kind of centralized place in the heart of the Durban CBD. Hotels, for instance, around the circumference of the stadium itself are completely full, we're told. And in many instances, they're also just ordinary businessmen and women who would have had to suffer the double blow in Durban of not only dealing with the economic fallout of COVID-19, but also the devastation that was brought on by the flooding that took place in parts of this province. They too are hoping to be able to bounce back from all the kind of economic activity that's going to take place here. Durban is also considered to be a very central tourist kind of attraction for many people. It's an opportunity, I guess, for South Africans in the country to also rediscover the city, and hopefully that'll kind of give the momentum that so many metropolitan cities across the country are looking for in order to get back to those pre-COVID-19 economic levels. But those socio-economic problems that I was alluding to is also something that the government will be looking to solve by creating this temporary employment. For instance, some of the guys who are working behind me, without a doubt, are going to have temporary jobs, which are hopefully going to be able to get them through the next couple of months, the kind of income that they wouldn't necessarily have enjoyed had it not been for this kind of event. But I'd alluded earlier on to the sounds of the rehearsals that are taking place. I'm not sure if you're able to hear it now, but it sounds like it's resuming once again.
And Nyathi for us at Moses Mabhida Stadium, Ziyanda Ngcobo also in KwaZulu-Natal, part of the team that's going to bring you minute-by-minute coverage of the AmaZulu King's coronation tomorrow, where he will receive a certificate officially from President Cyril Ramaphosa, recognizing him as the rightful leader of the AmaZulu nation.